CO2 production. And even just, you know, if you have a little plot, you can grow some vegetables or a place to plant trees, that will help a lot. Now, the city of San Diego looked at this and said, what are the emissions for the residents of San Diego? And we're kind of close to San Diego, so this reasonably still applies. The city of San Diego is saying, of the people that live there and industries and so on, what's producing all the CO2? 55%, the majority of the emissions were coming from transportation, and that's cars and trucks, and the occasional bus. Still almost a quarter, 24%, was from electricity. Now, I don't quite understand this this graph, but so there are a couple of other smaller components, but the point is, if we can address transportation, we can reduce a lot of emissions. Now, I mentioned about cost of producing energy. Sun and wind are now the cheapest way to generate power around the world. And I have various references if you're interested to substantiate that. But fossil fuels continue to be used and promoted. And the major problem is there's huge government subsidies for the extraction and burning of fossil fuels. If it's coal, we're going to underwrite it, we're going to support it, we're going to subsidize it. But if it's solar electricity, we're not. In fact, I heard of a recent project where a very large wind power project in the Northeast is being held up, terribly held up by the current administration. Whereas all of the oil and gas projects are being pushed through. So we have the SANDAG is coming up with a new transportation plan. City of San Diego has a climate action plan where they've committed to 100% renewable energy by 2035. There's also a whole array of things in the California climate strategy. And you might say, well, wait a minute, this isn't our problem. It's really the people in China and very numerous population in China and India and somewhere else that are producing all the CO2. Well, if we look at it, it's actually still the U.S. that's producing most of the CO2 per capita, per person. We're producing, I think this is an annual figure, 20 tons of CO2 per person. Whereas China, 9 tons, India, 2.4 tons. So we're producing almost 10 times as much as India is per capita. So we clearly have a responsibility to do something about this. We need to provide strong incentives for renewable energy, renewable electricity, build the infrastructure so electric trucks and buses will have a place to plug in, stop the subsidies for fossil fuel, encourage more forward-looking farming ways. And something I haven't mentioned, but is very important, is the rainforests in the Amazon some have compared it to the lungs of the planet. Meanwhile, the government of Brazil and many private outfits are burning down a lot of those rainforests. And we have to support other countries in converting to renewable energy. We need to be actively endorsing it and supporting it rather than getting tied up in how we can preserve our fossil fuel supply. If we have a threat to our fossil fuel supply, that should be an incentive to support the renewable supply, not a geopolitical problem that is to be taken as. So let's see. Any comments or questions or anything?
So you said your car was a used car or a brand new car?
Brand new car. We leased it in, I think it was the last day of 2016. That would be about right. Yeah. So unfortunately, the lease is coming to an end here in a few months, so we have to. And the way these leases work, it's not practical to really continue owning the car. So. But we really enjoyed the car. It drives very well. So.
Do you
you have a problem with charging places?
Well, you can't drive the southern part of San Diego and back here without charging somewhere along the way. So, it's been one of the questions is find a charging site. But there's actually an app on the phone that says, this is where all the charging sites are.
And how many people fit in the car?
3. It is really designed for 2 people, and you can get a third person in the backseat, but it's not something for a long trip.
Yeah.